in a way that tells the story, but they'll also gather more data. We looked at numbers and figures, but John always talks about this is where we get a chance to look at the qualitative information through interviews. A lot of times is what is done with an equity audit. So the main points of it, it does a discovery, it puts together a plan, a development plan, and then from that, your committee, whoever works with this firm, gets to decide on implementation and what that looks like. So I hope that makes sense of what actually is, what it's done, what it's composed of. Now, Claire, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, first I appreciate that we are continuing to look at our not just our data, but we all know that our data are always the results of direct systems that are currently in place. And, you know, well, I think the appropriateness of having an outside set of eyes in a thorough equity audit is that it allows for a perspective that is outside of the lived experience of what we're living as members of this organization. I think sometimes it can become difficult to see an issue within the system if you are currently deeply immersed in it. I mean, that's something I was like, I use it. Anyone used to watch, it comes on in over House Hunters, and I always think about that show where, that's somebody's beautiful home that they care a lot about, that's up there, and the whole world is looking to it. But then another couple comes in and like, well, why is that beam right there? And I'm sure whoever lived there originally loved it, thought it was the greatest thing, but someone else like, well, maybe it shouldn't be right there. And so that perspective just helps us to really dig deeper into what we are trying to accomplish, which is to make sure that we have a system that creates proportional outcomes for all of our students. I think the deeper discussion, and I appreciate Warren Member White for bringing it up at the table, is that we also want to do it in an authentic way. Look at some of the things that have to be thought through are timing of when is it appropriate to start, what is the impact on staff who are need to be key players in this throughout our organization, and also the fiscal piece of it. There's always a fiscal component as part of our budget that has to be taken into consideration. So I think in consideration of those three areas, the concept I am in favor of, but just want to make sure we navigate this in a way that we don't indirectly impact the work streams of people, of our staff that are doing amazing work already, that the timing is appropriate in concert with work that's already happening, and it matches the budget priorities that we're going to have in place.
I'm glad Dr. Clarity mentioned time, because on average, they take between 120 to 180 days to complete a thorough equity audit at a district level. So it's not a short process by any means. It's very thorough. And it always leads to things that, like Dr. Clarity said, that you didn't know, that you didn't realize because you were thoroughly immersed in it daily.
I have a question. Maybe I'm skipping ahead here, but I feel like this really dovetails into implicit bias training. Mm-hmm. And this implicit bias training part of the equity audit process is typically done in tandem. I just don't see I feel like implicit bias training is necessary to probably make the execution of what's discovered in equity audit to be something that can be sustainable and continue to be made progress on. Am I understanding that incorrectly, or are they two separate things?
Can I just offer one clarification? So
Sure.
The implicit bias training we want to consider is for us as board members. There's been a large amount of training happened already in the district for staff. So it's getting us kind of more aligned. Yeah.
Okay.
So to the point of, we've done some of that work already in district. We're just the ones kind of missing from that at this point. The question, I think, still about the concert of those being together, I think is still viable, but just wanted to add that clarification.
Correct. And then yes, you're correct in your statement. And I think as we if we learn some of the outcomes that additional implicit buy-in training is a recommendation, that is something that we would definitely move forward. And also knowing that the last deep training of it was in 2021, and knowing 3 years worth of possible new staff that may have not had the training, we want to make sure that we have systems in place to close that gap as well. So I would see it as a both end, but I wouldn't want to jump to that assumption as a conclusion until we received the information that is actually pinpointing it as a root cause.
Dr. Clarity said it perfectly. I've seen in cases implicit bias training, Juan Carlos being the one of the factors at the end of an equity audit, a discovery, a recommendation.
Got it, thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I like this idea, and the reason I like this idea is because I'm a fan of getting us as much data as we can. We get a lot of quantitative, objective data, but we've talked a ton about how it doesn't really tell the full story, and that those numbers can lie if they're taken out of context. What this seems like it's giving, and I don't have a lot of experience with this, but it sounds like it's giving that qualitative, like the street data that we used to talk about, that it doesn't funnel up to the board a whole lot. We don't have a lot of direct one-on-one conversations with students. There are day-to-day things that happen in the district that just don't rise to our level, so we don't really know what's going on. This seems like a way for us to get that data, and then we can all, in partnership with administration, decide what to do with that data. I mean, I don't think it's tying our hands in any way, but it just gives us information that will better inform our decision making.
Questions, thoughts from board members?
I have some thoughts. I like this. I like getting more information. I feel, for me at least, this feels a lot more about getting information on blind spots. Like when you're thoroughly immersed in something, like you know what's going on day to day. You know, there's like when you're teaching a classroom and all the engaged students are coming up talking to you, telling you what they want to do. You know what they want to do, but the students that aren't talking are the ones that don't even show up because they're disengaged. You don't know. And I feel like if this process can help us get information about who's not being as engaged and why, and that will help guide us, that would be great. You know, for me, a lot of this speaks to, you know, fundamental economic problem of how we allocate resources and where we're going to get, you know, good marginal returns. You know, we need to engage with the students who haven't historically engaged well with school for whatever reasons, I don't know, because that's where we're going to get the most return as a community and as a school district. And so I really like this process. Yeah, that's all.
So just to like make sure I'm understanding, is this something that the board would be initiating, or is this something that the administration would be initiating for the district, and we're just getting up to date on it? Where does this fall in, you know, our scope of work?
So I think the scope of facilitating the work would fall on administration. It was brought to the table as a recommendation from the board, then brought to the board member, then brought to the full board for discussion. And as we hear during the discussion, if this is something the board desires, then I would take it as an administrative task under the board's purview. But I would see myself or members of the team being responsible for bringing vendors to you. That has to be part of OE6 anyway, because they'll fall under that threshold. Probably you'll have maybe some presentations from different vendors as to, you know, who we would like to go with, establish an appropriate timeline, get feedback from the administrative team. Will this conflict with existing work streams that are currently happening? And so once it appropriately timed, if knowing that equity audits often highly involved to work with human resources departments. We don't want to do it at the same time that we're looking at insurance turnover or trying to look at those programs. Just as an example. So a long way of saying it would be a board directive that I would administer because it came from the board table.
So where does the budgeting involve for that? Is that something then that the budget, if it's a board directive, is that then coming from the board budget?
There
Which
needs,
is-
yeah, there needs to be a budget transfer in that situation, but, or just approval to adjust the superintendent's budget to finish or to complete the project. There's one way or another, there would have to be a budget adjustment, whether it's the board line or the superintendent line.
Any other questions, thoughts from the board right now? From what I'm gathering, it sounds like the board is reasonably open to the concept moving forward. So if this is, again, just an opportunity to mull over and come to a place where we're taking this as a board directive and taking some action in a further meeting to say, yes, onward, let's do this, and then starting to collaborate, again, as you shared, Dr. Clarity, with vendors, timeline, pieces such as that. And I know I'm very much looking forward to the learning part of it. So even though we're agreeing that with our coherent governance structure that this would be coming from the board, I have zero expertise in this. So I look forward to being able to do the partnering and brainstorming with all of you to be on this kind of new step as a board in our district. It sounds like it would be, we are in the right place, I think, for this work. I guess I'll put it that way. So I think it makes sense to then maybe table for now and bring this back as official board action at a future meeting. Does that sound agreeable to take a vote?
Well, I mean, I think if we want to know what the scope and budgetary impact is before, I mean, it seems hard to vote without knowing more information. It sounds like a great direction. I think just having some of the other pieces, to make an informed decision.
Okay.
I think we have enough consensus to say we'd like to see some proposals.
So at least move
for
forward
vendors.
with something.
That
Okay.
sounds,
Right.
Okay.
That's what I thought we were doing.
Proposals for vendors, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that ties to
Yeah,
the
like
fiscal piece, right? If we're
timeline,
talking about
you know,
specific
and-
vendors and
Yeah.
in the cost.
What the
Yes.
impact, what expected impact to administration and staff is going to be, all those things.
And how does that initial request
what we're doing.
fit with you and your team for timeline? So this initial piece of taking the steps to start to find vendors and create these proposals.
I can
More information.
begin the search for vendors. They would have to write the proposals as part of their RFP. I'm not gonna do their part of it.
Sure not. Just- Okay, yep. Any other pieces on the equity audit? Thanks, Corby.
Just for formality,
Thanks, Corby.
Yeah.
for OE6, the signature would actually come from Jen.
No, OE6, we need to prove that we went through the RFP process,
Correct.
to make sure it's competitive.
So that's
It would not reach the board threshold of $250,000 likely. No. We would include it as a budget add as we work our way towards at the actual budget book. That will be in draft form in about a month, then board's hand 6 weeks from now, and then eventually pass board budget at the end of October.
But it would hit the threshold of OE6 because it's likely to pass $10,000.
I think the timing would be appropriate if we could get some, at least initial proposals in RFP form with at least a range of costs to get it back to the board in the next month, so then we could insert it in the draft budget book.
Okay.
Thanks, all. And then moving on to just general OE8 board planning and updates. Anyone have anything to share, or general board updates, I guess B or C, anything about communications or any other board happenings? No, I always feel like I'm forgetting something in that moment, which is why I very acutely look at all of you in the eyes to see if you're gonna give me that sign that I'm missing something. All right, moving on to public comment. Do we have any public comments tonight, Lori? Okay, thank you. And then superintendent's consent agenda. I think Dr. Clarity has a comment to just surface as we make sure we've all looked at the consent agenda for tonight.
Correct. So under superintendent agenda consent item A, under personnel, I just wanted to take an opportunity for acknowledgement of a member of our Verona School District family that is part of the personnel item. That's Mr. Joel Zimba, and just saying it out loud makes my stomach bubble a little bit, knowing not just the professional but the personal talent of Joel and what he has brought to this organization, and just a high character individual. He's made great strides with the Verona School District athletic and activities program, and is just a beloved member of our family. And knowing an opportunity to celebrate when you know talent arises when a person moves from a high school athletic director to a Division I program in Washington. That means as we couldn't keep his talent a secret across our nation long enough. So congratulations to him and his family for their move to the University of Evansville as their deputy athletic director for policy. And know he'll continue to do great things, and he'll always be a member of the Wildcat family.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks again to Joel for all of your service and time. That's really helped support the board work for sure.
I feel like we've been waiting for this resignation. I hate to say it.
Yeah.
But with a heavy heart, we wish Joel much luck. He's brought a lot to the
Absolutely. So timing wise, we've already posted, and next week begin our process.
Yeah, it's posted.
Okay. Are there any other questions regarding anything else in the superintendent consent agenda? Hearing none, the superintendent's consent agenda is approved and as presented. Making sure that you've looked over the board's consent agenda. Are there any questions there? Thanks for the not rhetorical one, Carlos. I appreciate that. Hearing none, the board's consent agenda is approved. Just taking again a peek at future agenda items, mostly upcoming board meetings, but of course making sure you reserve the date for convocation. Looking forward to hearing more about the schedule, to know Dr. Hawkins' outfit. Very much looking forward to August 26th.
And a great message.
Oh, that too, for sure. Without saying, it'll be a great message. And then in continuing our work this evening in open session, we're going to do a little shift to board workshop time where we can start to discuss some items that have been kind of lingering in terms of things we want to just full on discuss without presentation, just things to kind of engage in. And I believe we were actually going to even rearrange the space slightly so we can really make discussion a bit more feasible. So we'll just take a little pause while we kind of reorganize and reshift our open session workshop mode.
So for table purposes, we're going to try to have this, we're going to turn this part of it this way and face the screen, and then also do the on each side so we can do more, as much eye contact